Morning, welcome back to Alright, What's Next? I went ahead and glued up the second flag blank off the camera, got it cut down to size, ready to be shaped. So that's what we're going to go ahead and start doing now, is shaping these things. We're going to make a unholy mess in this shop. There's going to be sawdust everywhere. My dust collection system is not going to keep up with it. I don't really have a good dust collection system anyway, it's just an oversized vacuum with a big tube on it. But we'll get it set up, get the grinder out, show you what we use to grind these, and we'll get started grinding them down. Alright, here's what we're going to use to shape this flag. You're going to need an angle grinder. You get an angle grinder and use it, make sure your guard is on there, because the first disc that we're going to use, if your hand gets into that, it is going to absolutely destroy you, because it's an extremely aggressive cutting wheel. A lot of people say, oh, I don't like the guard's in my way. Like, well, no shit, that's why they call it a guard. So, make sure the guard is on there. Then, we're going to start with this disc. It's called a Kutzall Extreme Shaping Disc. See if you can get a closer look at it without it getting too blurry. My camera sucks. But it's a little metal disc, and it's covered in hundreds of little pointy teeth, and it will just remove wood so fast. But that will be the first step. Then we'll go through a series of grinding discs. These are just little flaps of sandpaper that'll go in your disc grinder. And I start with a 36 grit, and that'll remove all the tool marks from the Kutzall Extreme. So start with 36 grit, then I move up to a flap wheel 80 grit. As it says right here, 80 grit. Paper flew off, so you can't tell what it is, but it's 80 grit. Then I'll finish it off with 120 grit. Now the thing is, with this 120 grit, you use that to take off as much of the tool marks that you can possibly get out of it, but it has a tendency of burning the wood, and you got to have a really light touch to it, otherwise it just instantly burns the wood. So after you're done with this, then you go through, get your old trusty Black & Decker oscillating sander, and I would start with 100 grit, and I go through, and that will remove the burn marks and any remaining tool marks left over from your sanding discs. For the most part, you're going to have some small tool marks remaining, and you can keep working it and working it and working it. But when you're sanding on a curved surface, it's really difficult to get them all out. And you'll get it down to where they're relatively small, and you won't notice it unless you're up there with your nose right on the flag and inspecting it. After 100, do a final sanding of 150. Wet the board down in between sandpapers, and that'll bring the wood grain up, and it'll allow you to sand it down better. You might even want to wet it, hit it with the 100 grit a couple of times. Do that a couple of times, 2, 3, sometimes even 4, depending on just how perfect you want it. Then do the 150. We're going to put 3 coats of semi-gloss polyurethane on here, so there's no need to go any more than that. If it was just going to be left as a wood surface, then you'd want to go to 220. The 150 will be enough, because we're going to put a clear coat on there. So the first thing we're going to do is put our disc in. If you're going to use that, you want to wear heavy leather gloves. Get a set of heavy leather gloves. This is a Black Canyon brand. I don't know how much they cost, I don't remember. They've been laying in my toolbox for a while. But you definitely want to have a good pair of heavy gloves, so if that grinding disc gets away from you, somehow spins around, gets into your hand, it'll rip these leather gloves up before it removes all the flesh down to the bone. You need to put the disc in the grinder, take the nut off the top, lock button on the bottom. Turn it until it locks in. And you don't need to use the tool to lock the wheel in place. Just by grabbing the wheel and cranking it down will lock it in tight enough. If you grab the spanner wrench that comes with it and you crank down on it, sometimes it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to remove this nut again. But with the way the thing spins, it kind of self-tightens. I've never had one come loose by doing it this way. Now, I lost the spanner wrench for mine, so I got to use a pair of channel locks to take it apart. It's a pain in the ass because trying to get these thing off of here with a pair of channel locks, you got to lock it down on here and hold onto the wheel and break it loose, but that's for another day. Alright, let's have a look at my awesome dust collection system. Right there, that's what I've got for dust collection. It's just like I said, an oversized vacuum with a big tube clamped up onto here. And we've got the blank right here, and if you use the grinder, you can direction the sawdust and where it's going to come flying off. So as long as you keep holding it the same direction and grinding the same direction, the sawdust will be pointed towards that tube, and it'll suck up like 5 to 6% of it. It really doesn't do a very good job. You're going to make a horrible mess. Wear a dust mask. Otherwise you're going to be blowing sawdust out your nose for a week. To get a good quality dust mask, not them paper things. I'll show you one here in a second. Alright, safety glasses, you definitely want to wear them because it's going to send shit flying everywhere. And if one of these little teeth comes flying off for some reason, you certainly don't want one flying through your eyeball. So get a good pair of safety glasses. This is the dust mask. I think it's made by a company called Dirt Mask. It's got a nice nose clip right here that'll hold it down tight on your nose. Inside it's got a little filter, built-in breathing holes so that fresh air can, or the air can be blown out, but it won't come back in, so it really helps reduce fog over. It's got a head strap to go over the top of your head that pulls it in tight against your nose up here so that the dust doesn't suck in and get into your nose. And of course Velcro band to go around your neck. I think these aren't overly expensive. I think I spent like $15 on it, but it does way better of a job filtering out the dust than just a simple paper mask. And I've spent enough time out here not using a dust mask and then having sawdust freaking blowing out of my nose. It's gross. So go ahead and get one of these, wear it, safety glasses, leather gloves, and then you're ready to grind. Clamp the blank down. When you start grinding, it's going to want to move all over the place. So just put a single clamp on it and it'll help hold it in place. And then we can grind it down. Let's get started. Here's the basic shape. It's a very rough cut, extremely rough. Like this corner right here, we'll refine this shape with the sanding discs. We'll be able to turn these corners, these edges right here, we'll make them a lot sharper, more defined. It'll look better. You only want to rough it up using that Cuts All Extreme disc. Once you got your basic rough shape up, then we can refine it. But before we refine it, we got to work on the back side of it. The back side of it looks like crap right now. It is covered in glue drips. It's very uneven. We're going to flatten this out, and after we flatten it out, then we're going to address this big flat stupid looking surface right here. We need to make this flag look 3D. So we're going to remove a huge amount of material out of here and drop it back into the back side of the flag. And what that'll do when we hang it on the wall, you only have a smaller surface area that'll be flat against the wall. And because you ground all this out, it'll look like the flag is standing out proud of the wall and give it a much better 3D effect. So we're not going for perfect on the back side. We're just going to take this electric planer, Craftsman planer, and we're just going to grind it off. We don't care if it's really kind of gouged up. We're going to get it relatively flat and smooth. Remove all of this glue and nasty shit off the back side of it. And then once we got it flat, then we'll grind out the back side edges to give it a much better 3D look. Planer just broke. The gear's stripped out. Yeah. Turn it now, the goddamn blades aren't spinning. So we'll have to refine this back with the sanding discs. I got most of the glue off already, so it's actually pretty close. We'll just take the sanding disc and just go over it real quick and we'll get this flatter. So no big deal other than now I gotta buy another goddamn planer. It's pretty old. It's been heavily used, so I'm surprised it's lasted as long as it has. All the edges ground down so we got a nice 3D effect. We'll use the sanding discs on the grinder to kind of finish this off since my planer crapped out on me. We'll go through, we'll clean this up and make it look a hell of a lot nicer, and then work through each disc until we're ready to tape it off and put the finish on. I found, unfortunately, right here there is a knot hole, and there's a chunk missing out of the knot, so there's a hole in this board, but that's alright. Just gives it some character. So let's go ahead and do some finish sanding. I already got the 36 grit disc in here, so we'll refine the shape now. ground down with the 36 grit sanding wheel. We've got our basic shape. Now it's just going through and sanding and trying to remove as many of the frickin' tool marks, grind marks, whatever you want to call it, out of it. So we'll move up to the 80 grit sand, then to the 120, and then we'll go over to the oscillating sander. Now when you're sanding, when you're using this to sand, don't push into it. Just kind of hold it and just let it float over the material. If you push down too hard, you can gouge into it. You can distort the shape. You're trying to go for a nice flowing pattern. So just hold on to it and just let the grinder flow over the material and move it where you want it to go. Because if you put pressure on it, I guarantee you're going to gouge the shit out of it. You're going to screw up the whole project, and then it'll just go in the burn pit. Let it float. I'm not going to record going through the next couple of stages. It's redundant because we have our basic shape now. So now I'm going to just remove some of these tool marks and we'll get back to the video here in a little while. Alright, we're done using all of the grinder. We've gone through all the discs, 120. This thing is shaped as much as we're going to shape it. So now we need to work on finish sanding and try and make this a lot smoother. So we're going to start with 100 grit sandpaper. Full sheet of sandpaper, you can get 3 pieces for an oscillating sander like this. You got the long side, the short side. You need to fold it in thirds onto the short side. Fold it in thirds and you'll get 3 pieces out of it. Just crease the crap out of it. Flip it over, crease it again. Then just take a knife, go along that crease. And get a piece out of it. Now I found when you put the paper in these oscillating sanders, they tend to want to wander. They'll vibrate all over the place. So I'll take a little bit of spray adhesive and just put a small amount on it. Then just lock it in. That spray adhesive is going to keep the sandpaper from sliding off the sides. It's a common problem with these things, but that will stop it. So now we just got to sand the shit out of it with this 100 grit. We'll wet it down, hit it again with 100 grit. We might do it a third time, and then we'll move on to 150. Sanded the whole thing down with 150. It's relatively smooth. It's starting to look really good. So now what we're going to do, we're going to wet it down. Wetting it down is going to make the grain come back. It's going to lift the grain up, and we can sand it again. After a certain amount of time sanding, the grain just kind of gets matted down, and you're really not doing anything. So you got to wet it periodically. That brings the grain back up. When you sand it again, this shit will come off freaking really quick. So get yourself a little tub of water, a washcloth, and we'll wet it down. Also, a good thing about this, if you're using different exotic woods or whatever, when you wet it down, it'll give you an idea of what the wood's going to look like when you put your clear coat on. When you wet this down, you're going to go like, holy shit, there's all kinds of freaking things that I overlooked. Tool marks and that you didn't see. Because it makes everything just stand back up. And the backside, we're going to wet just the area that we ground out. We're not going to worry too much about the center surface. To be honest, we're not going to worry too much about the backside anyways. We're going to wet it down and resand it. We want it to be somewhat smooth, but it really doesn't matter that much because it is going to be up against the wall. And in the next stage, when we're done sanding, we're going to burn it. So if there is any grain standing up, the burning will take it out. And the backside is going to get an extreme burn because we want it to be relatively black to give a shadow effect when it's up against the wall. The front will do a very, very, very light burn. Just to give it kind of a rustic look. It looks way better if you freaking give it a burn. Alright. So now, to expedite drying, let's set up a fan. It's a cool little snap-on fan. It'll do the temperature and everything. We'll just set that up, let that run till it's go to dry. Then we'll hit it with 100 again, re-wet it, 150, then the thing's going to be ready to be striped out. Alright, the first sanding of 100 grit is done. Wetted it down, it's now dry, it's ready to be hit with 100 grit again. After wetting it down, you know, it roughed it up again. We're going to go ahead and hit it with 100 grit, re-wet it, and then be ready for 150. After the 150, then we'll be ready to tape it off and start putting the stain on. So this is pretty well done for today. We'll finish the sanding up, but you don't even see that because it's redundant. The dog wants to watch me sand. So go ahead and click subscribe, hit like if you liked the video. I'm sure nobody did. Turn on notifications so you can see when I upload my next stupid video. But the most important thing is subscribe. All right. The blank is completely sanded. It's all nice and smooth, both sides. So now we are ready for the next step. What we're going to do, we're going to put a light burn over the front surface of it. Then after we do the light burn, we'll flip it over, and all these recessed areas, we're going to burn that a lot darker. This will give it a nice shadow effect when it's up against the wall, help promote that 3D feel to it. So when we do the light burn, we're literally just trying to get a nice light. Burn. I think it really helps enhance the color of the flag. It makes it more rustic looking when we put the stain on there. Now we'll go ahead and we'll burn the crap out of these portions right here to help enhance the shadows. For some reason it's hot. So now we're ready. Tape it off, start to put the stain on it. Alright, so now we're ready to lay out where the union's going to go and then start taping this off for the stripes. The union, of course, is the blue field that the stars will go in. You'll want to get yourself a stencil. This one is 9 inches by 11 inches with 3/4 inch stars. So if you order one, that is the size you're going to want for this particular flag. If you're going to make a bigger or smaller one, you're going to have to figure out how big your union is going to be and how big of a stencil to order. So pretty much look at it, figure out what corner you want the union to go in. Get it roughly lined up on there, and we'll just make a couple of small marks. Now the union is going to encompass the first 7 layers. So whenever you lay it out, make sure you've got the right size of union, because if it goes too far, then your flag isn't going to work. So we'll just go ahead and we'll put a tiny little mark there, and a tiny little mark there, and this is where my tape line is going to be. And the bottom line, of course, it's just going to follow the seam line between the boards, because each one of the 2x4s that glued together is going to be an individual stripe. So you have something to follow when you start laying down the tape. Plus with the seam line, it helps with the stain not going over into the next stripe. You don't want the red stain getting on the white stripe, of course. So let's start laying out tape lines. Get good quality painter's tape. This is 3M brand. That's really good stuff. Duct tape brand, that's another one that you want to use. Frog tape, that's a green painter's tape, but it works really well. Don't go to the dollar store and buy the cheapest shit on the shelf, because you're going to run the risk that the tape isn't going to have a good sealing glue to keep that stain from leaking through. And why go through this much work just to skimp out on cheap ass tape and ruin your whole project? So buy a decent quality tape. It's not like it's overly expensive. And if you're going to make this flag, you've already spent a couple of $1,000s on tools anyways. So what's another $3.50 for a roll of tape? So let's work on laying it out. Now we're going to run this tape line down, block off the union. Now since the line that runs underneath the union is going to be a white one, that will also run right along this line, and then we'll have a nice blocked out area. When you get it down, take your fingernail, something that you can just really rub down and shove that edge of the tape down as tight as you can get it down onto the board. You want to do everything you possibly can to keep stain from leaking underneath that edge. Now we don't really have to tape off this line because this is going to be white. So we're going to go, your American flag will always start with a red stripe on the top, a red stripe on the bottom, and the bottom of the union will be a red stripe right here. So it's red, white, red, white, red, white, red. And right here is the last line of the union. So let's tape off the first red stripe. This can be a royal pain in the ass trying to get that tape to follow that curved line, but just go slow. Now where it wraps underneath, we'll come back later and we'll add some more tape in on the back side, because when it wraps down it kind of gets off the line. Taped off and ready to put the red stain on. So what we need, what I found is like the best color, Varathane's Barn Red. It's like the reddest red stain that I've been able to find that closely matches an American flag red. There may be other ones out there, but the Varathane Barn Red, I really like the color of it, and it's good, really high quality stain. So that's what I use for the stripes. Then you're going to want yourself some gloves, otherwise you'll stain the shit out of yourself. Get these from Harbor Freight, box of 100. 5 mil thickness is more than good enough for doing this. If you're going to be using gloves for working on cars or whatever, you want maybe a 7 mil. The 5 mil thickness is plenty for this. I think it's like $7.99 for a box of that. Then we need a little foamy brush. I think these work about the best for this. They're disposable. You can buy this 24 pack of foam brushes from Menards. I think it costs $7. It might not even been that much. I don't remember. I buy so many of these damn things I can't remember how much they cost. But you want to use this little one to do the stripes. All right. I got my workstation set up over there, plastic down. So let's go ahead and we'll put some stain on. All right. Don't shake this up to stir it. Pop the cap open, stir it up with something. I keep this galvanized metal rod around to stir it. If you shake it, you're just going to fill it with bubbles and it's going to screw up your finish. So stir it. Alright, that's good and stirred up, so let's get the flag. When you start putting this on, do your best to try and keep it off the tape to just kind of minimize the risk of any bleed over. I like to do one stripe at a time because you put this stuff on and then you let it sit and then wipe the excess. Always go with the wood grain. And don't forget to get the underside. It's not hugely important, it really isn't going to be seen, but and you just get yourself a clean rag. And just wipe the excess down. Alright, stain's on, it's relatively dry. It's not dry enough that we can move on to taping off the next step, but we can do the big unveil and remove the tape. With these little foamy brushes, I always buy the ones that have the wooden handle. One, they're a higher quality, they work better. But when you're done, you can just snap the freaking foam off and you got a dowel rod. Dowel rods are always needed for millions of freaking projects out in the shop. So always remember that. snap the dowel rod off the bottom of your foaming brush when you're done. All right, let's move this tape off. There we go. That's got the red stripes on there. Now we gotta let that set up for a few hours and then we can tape it off, put the blue on. Alright, red stain is now fully set up, nice and dry. So now we gotta go ahead and tape it off, get ready to put the blue on. Now you want to be real careful on this line here because you don't want the blue to overlap the red and get a purple spot. So you got to be really precise, and you don't want to leave a gap. Alright, and the union will end at the bottom of this red stripe here. So the bottom of this stripe will run along, that will be the bottom of the union. Flip it over and we'll tape off the back side. Again, you don't really have to go up very far because you're not always going to stain the entire back side of the flag. That'd just be freaking stupid. Just go up so far because you just want a little bit in case somebody walks around the corner to critique your work. Alright, it is ready for stain. What we're going to use for the blue stain is this Minwax water-based wood stain. What you do is you go to your hardware store, you have to buy this clear tint base. So all it is just a clear liquid. You have to take it up to the paint counter and they will mix the color that you want. What I found that seems to be about the best looking blue stain is their navy blue color. So take it up to the paint counter, they'll put the right tint in there, shake it up for you, and then you've got a really nice blue stain. So let's go ahead and apply that. Then this will dry, then we got to put the stars on, grind them out, then it's ready for clear coating. So let's stain it. set up, let it dry overnight. Now take tape off. Got a really nice clean line. Now we take our star stencil and we'll lay it over top of the union. Center it up. And you can just use painter's tape to hold it down. I've got these drafting dots. They're just for holding drafting paper down. It's leftovers from when I tried to go to college many eons ago and decided I hated it. Yeah, and just get her taped down where it stays in place, and then we'll trace out all 50 stars. Peel this crap back off here. Now, need to get a Dremel. We don't want cutting wheel. So we'll take that off. Get yourself a good set of different bits. This is just a kind of knockoff brand, but they work just the same. A little round shaft, and it's got diamond grit glued to the end of it. And we'll just use that in the Dremel to grind out all the stars. The way I go through and do it is I get a comfortable position and I just grind a line, move to the next one, grind out a line, move to the next one. And I do one line on all the stars in that particular position. And then when it's time to do the next one, then you shift the flag to where you can get at the next line comfortably, go through all the stars on that line, move the flag to get into a comfortable position, and you go through and you do all the lines. Once you have all the lines ground out, then you just go back through and clean out the center of it. It's a little bit of a tedious process, but once you get going on it, it's not too bad. It takes about a half hour, 45 minutes. You can grind out all 50 stars. You can paint them on if you want. I think it looks like shit. It looks better if you grind them out, and it gets a little more of a 3D effect. Plus, if you paint them on, then you lose the wood grain. It changes the color of them. It doesn't go with the rest of the flag. It looks like crap. You want the stars to be basically the same color as what would be the white stripes. Seen people even do flags, wooden flags, where they put stickers on them, and that truly looks like shit. But if you want to be lazy, go for it. I'm going to grind mine out. for urethane. Then after the urethane's done, we put the hangers on and this flag ready to go. Let's put some clear coat on it. What we're going to use Minwax polyurethane clear semi-gloss. I prefer the semi-gloss for the flags. You don't want to go with the gloss, they're just way too damn shiny and it kind of distracts away from the burned rustic look that you're going for anyways. But if you want to use gloss, go for it, it's your flag, not mine. So don't shake this stuff up, get a stirring stick, stir it up really thoroughly, and then we'll go ahead and apply it. We'll do one single coat, and then after it dries, we'll do a light sanding with 220, another coat, 220 sanding, third coat, and it'll be done. We got to put hangers on it so it can hang on the wall. Get these little D-rings from your big box store. These are OOK brand, OOK, large D-ring hangers. Put them on, we'll flip the flag over. That's where it gets complicated because you need math. For 30 inches, a half of 30 inches is somewhere around 13 or so. So mark your middle. Now the flag's heavy. It weighs probably 15 pounds or so. So to put these on, we want to put them on at 16 on center. That's where your studs are going to be in the walls. What that means is every 16 inches is the center of another stud, and you want to be able to friggin' put a screw in to put the D-ring in. So what we'll do, we'll go from the center, measure out 8 inches, from the other center, measure out another 8 inches. Now we know where to put our D-rings. Now there's going to be a line run along here because that's where the boards meet. So you just use that line to align your D-ring. Then get a Phillips head screwdriver. I used to hate Phillips head, and then I bought these Bosch Phillips bits. These things fucking rock. It's like I can use Phillips heads now. I used to only use Torx, but after I found these things, I actually spent real money on Phillips heads. They're worth buying again. So if you're gonna buy a Phillips bit, don't skimp and buy some cheap shit. D-rings are on, so now we're going to put some little foam patties down here to keep from scuffing up the wall. These are just little self-adhesive foam pads that go on the underside of furniture legs to keep from scuffing up your hardwood floors. We're going to cut this in half. We'll just glue it on the bottom side. It'll keep the flag more level, and then it won't damage any of your paint on your wall. And that's it. That is how to make a 3D waving American flag out of 2x4s. So go ahead and start making your own. But before you do that, don't forget to click subscribe, please. I need lots of subscribers. That'd be awesome. Alright guys, next time. Bye.